Hi and welcome to my Ableton Live Basics video. With this video I guarantee I will teach you how to make music with Ableton Live and understand its basic concepts. Thank you for purchasing this video because by doing that you are supporting my living. So this will be about basics and there will be an advanced course later. In this video I will not explain every electronic music or every DAW concept out there because that would take 50 hours and I want to make this as short as possible, but I want to get your hands dirty. In this video I will be using Ableton Live 10, which at the time of making this video is the latest version. So let's get cracking. I assume that on your computer you have Ableton Live installed, and just to get some content on it, let's load up the demo song. Let's go to Help View, What's New in Live 10. Click on the live set here and you will get the demo song. Alright, you can close this window. Let's go through a few basic things relating to the view. If you want to change how big this looks to you, you can go to Preferences, which you can access here, and Look and Feel will give you a percentage, and this will allow you to change the size of the view to your liking. One handy trick relating to seeing and hiding all these modules is, if you remember Mrs. Boyle, MRSBOIL, and hold Alt and Command on Mac or Alt and Control on PC, you will be able to see and hide the basic modules. So what are these modules? Let's try out. I'm on a Mac, so Alt and Command, and M is for mixer. R is returns, and I will explain these later. I will not go into details right now. S is sends. B is browser. O is an overview that you can see on this side, which corresponds to your content here. I is for inputs. L is the bottom bar here. In many of these modules you can actually show and hide just by using the dedicated buttons. Like for the bottom bar it's here, browser is here. And one other thing is, if you ever need to consult the manual, you can click Help and read the live manual, and that'll give you the manual. And another handy tip is using the info view. Shift and question mark will give you an info view here, and this view will give you info on whatever you put your cursor on. So whenever you need to find some info on some elements on the screen, just enable info view and that'll tell you what these buttons and knobs and whatever are. A few quick words about the browser. What you have here are your collections, which can be used to color your favorite things. For example, if I color this bass sound and give it any color, let's say red, it will show up under whatever is under this red color. And you can edit these, you can hide them, show them, give them your own titles, and so on. Instruments will give you Ableton Live raw instruments and their presets. Sounds will give you instrument racks and their presets. I will explain instrument racks later. And here sounds are categorized. Drums, in a nutshell, gives you your drum sounds. Audio effects are the effects that Ableton Live offers for audio processing. Midi effects have to do with processing Midi information. Max for Live, this is for my advanced course. Plugins, this is your third-party plugins. Clips are your clips, and this I will explain later. Samples are your audio samples. And at the bottom, packs is if you have any packs installed. This means Ableton Live expansion packs. User library is your user library on your hard drive. Current project shows any files of your current project that you have saved. I'm not seeing anything because this is a demo song and I haven't saved anything yet. And the rest is up to you. You can use add folder to add any folder to here. Just click on a folder and hit open, and it'll be added here. Now, let's take a quick look at this view in Live. There are two main views, and you can switch between those by hitting the Tab key on your computer keyboard. You can also use these symbols here. The fastest way by far is by hitting Tab. So, if you have any experience about music software, you've probably seen this sort of layout before. And at the top, let's see what we got. At the top, we have bars. And you can zoom in. When you put your cursor here, you get this little magnifying glass, and when you click and drag, you can zoom in. At the bottom, you see length. How long is your song? I will explain bars a little later. If you click wherever in the song and hit spacebar, you will hear some music. I can click here and then play. And I use spacebar on my computer keyboard as play and stop. You can operate these buttons here as well if you want. So this view is called arrangement. And this is a very traditional layout where your music moves from left to right and you have a length for your song. I will get back to this later, but I will first want you to get hooked on the session view. But this is where you're going to save your song, and this is a great layout for editing and all sorts of retouching your song in a nice and visual way, but we will come back to that later. Because I want to start with you on session view, because this is what got me hooked on Ableton Live, and this is definitely what makes Ableton Live special. And what do I mean by that? I mean that all this musical content here may be very different from what you have here. Let me stop everything. In case I have anything playing, I will hit stop button here. Now when I play spacebar, I'm not hearing anything, and I can start playing things on this side. And you will see that even if I deleted everything here, I just paint it or select it and use backspace, everything's gone. And now let me start playing something here. Let me click this scene button. Okay, so what the scene button does is it triggers all the clips in this row. This is my third row, my third scene, and it will trigger all the clips on this row. I can also play clips wherever and just as I like. Let me try that. I created a bit of a mess, which is fine. I'll stop everything by hitting this stop button here. Alright. So, scenes can be used for sections of the songs if you want to. The session view is great for jamming and using this as a sketchpad for your song and playing clips in a pretty free order if you want to. How you use this is up to you, and I will, later in the video, I will explain how I use session view in more detail. But let's look at what goes on here. So tracks have clips. Let's double click on a clip. I'm seeing some Midi information, and I can click on another clip and I'll see the content of the clip. And about some limitations. You can only play one clip on a track at a time. What do I mean by this? By the way, let me make a little more space. Let me close the sends, which is Alt Command S. And I can solo a track by hitting S here. This is for solo. So let me solo this track and let me play these clips a little bit. Okay, so this track has a drum kit instrument. I can see the instrument and any possible devices after it when I double click on the track title. So all the clips on this track are playing the same instrument that I have on this track. And basically all these clips contain a little different MIDI information, as you can hear, like this clip. So it's just different information for the instrument. And I can color the clips if I want to. I can rename them if I want to. Just hit rename and call it whatever. And I can move these around if I want to. And if I needed a little more space here, I can create more scenes. Insert scene or Command I will give me more space to come up with more variations of this drum clip. And I can copy things, Command C, Command V, regular copy paste will do, or on a Mac if I drag and click Alt, drag, I can create copies. But yeah, the limitation is only one clip per track can be playing. And you may notice that when a clip is playing and you click on another clip, it will not play immediately. You saw that the play symbol here, this arrow, will start flashing and it'll wait for a little while. And this is determined by global quantization. And global quantization is here. You click on the drop down menu and by default this is set to 1 bar. And what a bar is, well, it's a basic musical unit for musical length. 1 bar in most styles, if we're using a time signature 4x4, let's listen to this with a metronome, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So when I set it to 1 bar, this menu here, which is global quantization, it means that when this is set to 1 bar, when a clip is playing and I trigger another clip, it will wait for this musical length unit to finish before the next clip will play. So it means that whenever I hit or trigger another clip, it will wait for that 1 bar to finish before the next clip will play. So let's say if my clip is going on, because let's remember here 1 bar is 1, 2, 3, 4. So if it's on 1, 2, if I trigger the clip here, it will wait for 1 bar to finish. So it'll wait for 3, 4 to finish, and then the clip will play. But in Ableton Live, you can program how the clips should proceed. Like this is gonna play for 4 bars, and then the next will play after that automatically. But we will get to that later. Now let's look at these clips a little more. Alright, let me get back to where I was, and if you create a mess, you can always load the demo song again, click help view, what's new live 10, live set, and I'll load the song again to get a fresh start. Okay, here we are. Alright, let's take a look at clips once more. You've probably been playing clips here by now and had some fun and definitely got some sound out of it. Let's double click on this clip. So you're gonna see what this is. It's MIDI notes. It's MIDI information. In Ableton Live, we deal with 2 types of tracks. We have audio tracks and MIDI tracks. So what are audio tracks and MIDI tracks? Audio tracks are such as the wavetable track here is an audio track, and this here Audio here means that it's sound that has already been created and recorded, and it exists as a file. You can play it back. Just like if you brought an MP3 to Ableton Live and played it back, that would be an audio file that would be played on an audio track. But the other track type is Midi, and Midi is for a musical instrument digital interface. And in practice, Midi tracks usually contain digital instruments, such as this drum kit here. Midi track can also send out Midi to external devices, such as synthesizers. And it's very easy to play these instruments in Ableton Live, and let's try that. To play an instrument, you can use a musical keyboard if you have it, the one with musical keys, or you can actually use your computer keyboard to do it. And there's two things you have to activate to do that. This symbol here, this will activate your computer keyboard as a device that you can use to input musical information into Live. And to select what track you're going to play, this symbol right here is the button that arms the track for playing. Okay, so let's try it. I have enabled my computer keyboard and I've enabled this track, so let's try. I'm hitting the key A on my computer keyboard, and I'll play some other keys as well. Okay, so it's working. If you're not getting any sound, you're probably playing the wrong key. That's not actually a key that doesn't contain any sound in this instrument. And there's two things you gotta be aware of when you're using your computer keyboard. And when you hit the keys Z and X on your keyboard, at the bottom of the screen, you can actually see that you're getting information on what octave your computer keyboard is currently covering. And computer keyboard covers one octave and one note above that, roughly. So when you're trying to play this instrument, you have to set your computer keyboard to C1, because the person who created this instrument has made a decision that sounds in this instrument start from C1 and rise from there chromatically. So it's C1, and above that, the other sounds can be heard. Another thing relating to using your computer keyboard, let's try playing this instrument here, sidechain pad. Okay, so one other thing is how loud your computer keyboard will be inputting data. When you hit C and V, you're getting this info. It's telling you something about velocity. And in practice, velocity means how loud you're playing it. So let me play one note and set or mess with the velocity. Okay, so this instrument can read velocity, and the higher the velocity for your computer keyboard, the louder the sound. Not every instrument can make use of velocity, and that's also user definable in many instruments. So because computer keyboard cannot actually sense how hard you're hitting it, so this is a nice feature in terms of how loud you want to play it. Let's try and create some music. Let me play scene 4 first. And I think I could do a bass line, and I know that track 4 has a bass line instrument, so I will enable it for playback. This is called arming a track. And let me just try out something. Okay, that might work. Let me just, before I record it, let me try just chiming it out. I won't record it, I'll just play it. And here we go. I'm using the space bar on my keyboard a lot just to start and stop, in case you're wondering. I think that's a really quick way. So if I want to record the bass line, there are two ways. One way is just to click on this little round thing here, and that will give me a new clip and record whatever I'll do into the clip. And one little tip relating to this. If you want a pre-count, which means that it will not record immediately, you can get it here. Count in 1 bar. This means that when I activate recording, it'll count it for you like this. So you get a little time to prepare. So let's just get rocking. I'll click here and I'll play the bass line and we'll see how I'll do. 1, 2, 3, 4. And I hit spacebar to stop recording. I'll give this a color to know that, hey, this is my bass line. I'll double click on the clip and here I see the notes. I'll click on this bar here to give this clip a little more room. And clicking here and dragging left and right allows you to zoom in a little bit. And here I'm seeing the notes. My clip lasts 4 bars. There's 1, 2, 3, 4. So this clip is 4 bars long. And now let's see the other method of recording, and that is if I already have a clip and I want to record into an existing clip. So here I could, if I wanted to, I could delete all the notes. I hit Command A or select the time and backspace will delete the notes. And if I want to record into an existing clip, which I already have, it's the orange one here. This symbol here will activate recording into an existing clip. And a little reminder here, if you ever end up forgetting what these little symbols are, you will get the help view from Shift and question mark. And the field in bottom left will give you info on this symbol, such as this one, which is session record button. Okay, so let's get recording into the clip now. And before I do that, here's a little quick pro tip. I go to preferences, which you can find here, or on Mac it's a command and comma. So recording tab, record warp launch, and here you have start playback with record. If you set it to off, it means that you can enable recording and it does not start the playback. And me, I'm a huge fan of this feature because I need some time to prepare. So definitely keep this in mind. When I enable recording, this is session record button, which means that this symbol activates recording in session. In case you're wondering, this traditional looking record button, this is for recording into arrangement, and we will take a look at that later. But now let's record into this clip. So this symbol has been enabled, and I will click on this clip, and this track is armed for playback. I'll click on this clip and I have pre-count enabled, so I got 1 bar, and there we go, 1, 2, 3, 4. I think I did pretty okay there. And let me show you a very nice feature about Ableton Live, which is the capture feature. Let me click on this clip slot here. There's no clip. I'll try to jam out the clip without any tempo or without the song playing, and then once I nail it, I can actually make a clip out of it. So let me try. If I feel that, okay, that was pretty nice. This button here is capture, and let me click on it. Okay, so you see that this is the one. I got a clip that actually captured the bass line that I played, and it created a clip out of that. My tempo got a little faster because I played it without a metronome, and I played it a little faster than my song. I can easily take the song tempo down, and song tempo is here. So the tempo was 100, so I can just click and drag down, or I can click and use my computer keyboard to take it down, or I can enter the value 100, and this is my original tempo. I can see and hear that it's not perfect, so there are two ways to correct this. So I'm done with this, so let me take the play start marker for the clip as well as the loop brace back to 1. So this is where the loop will start, clip will start, and it'll loop the whole section. Okay, so this was one way of correcting the MIDI notes. This was manual. Let's play some beats, because after playing some beats I usually need even more correcting. Let's go to track 1. Let's close this bar here. Let's make some more scenes because I'm gonna need some more space. I like a spacious layout. So insert scene, or Command I will give you more scenes. And I want to solo the drum track, and I just want to play in a drum clip. Oh, and a good idea might be to save your song at this point if you're feeling it. So save live set, or Command S, and save it to, I could save it to desktop, and give it a name, new song. There it is. I'll explain to you about the file structure a little later, but now save your song if you want to. Okay, so let's go and make some beats and see how Ableton Live can help you get your MIDI notes tight and correctly. I will do a new MIDI clip here. I'll double click and I'll get a new clip in the slot. And I will make the clip 1 bar long. I see the length here. This is bars. So 1 bar is exactly what I need. So one concept that we have to understand is the musical grid, because when we correct our MIDI notes, Ableton Live has to know how it's going to correct them. So let me explain the musical grid and its function to you. I have a clip that's 1 bar long, and at the bottom right you will see a number, 1/16. What does this mean? Well, let me do a fairly fast hi-hat. I'll double click to create a new MIDI note. I could activate this symbol here so I can hear what I'm doing. By the way, I can duplicate notes if I select them and I hit Command D for duplicate. Okay, and this is my new clip. So that's not the hi-hat sound that I'm after. So I'll just select the notes, and by using arrow keys I can just move it, or I can just grab it and push it into its place. Maybe this is the one. Okay. So you can see that, of course, the MIDI note has a certain length. And what is the factor that determines the length? Let me delete these notes. This number here is the grid resolution. Like, this means how many parts 1 bar has been divided into. So now you can see the grid here. On a Mac, you can set the grid resolution to tighter or looser by hitting Command 1 and Command 2. You can see the number change here. So yeah, technically this means how many parts the bar or the grid in this 1 bar has been divided into. So as you can see, if I make the grid bigger and I create the MIDI note, I'll get bigger MIDI notes. And this hi-hat would sound like, that could be doable actually, but I want a faster hi-hat. 16th notes. So it's good to understand the grid, because grid determines many things, especially the placement of your MIDI notes and correcting the MIDI notes. Because let's say I want to try and play this type of hi-hat manually. And let me see if I have my record quantization on. I'll make it off and let's see what happens. I will explain quantization very soon. So I have soloed the track and activate metronome. Let me practice first. Okay, let me just rock it. Okay, my playing was terrible, to say the least. I will not redo it because I could. Well, let me delete it. I sucked. But if I want to use quantization while recording, that means that while I am recording, Ableton Live will know where the MIDI notes should fall. So let's go to record quantization and go for 16th note quantization, because as I showed you, 16th notes, the bar divided into 16 little parts, is what I want for this hi-hat. I showed you how this sounded the way I want. Okay, so now I have enabled record quantization, so let me activate recording into a clip here and let me record it. My playing wasn't very tight, but this feature called record quantization made it tight, because what it did is, let's say that my MIDI note falls somewhere around here, like in terms of this grid line. Let's say my MIDI note falls here when I'm playing. Record quantization will force the MIDI note to the closest grid line, which is the 16th note grid line. So that is why I get a perfect hi-hat. Another way to correct your MIDI notes and get them tight would be quantization after recording. So let me delete these notes, and I want to play them manually once again. By the way, if you want to disable the grid, Command 4 is that. Command 3 will give you a triplet grid. I will play the hi-hats in by hand, and let me disable record quantization because I want it to go fairly loose once again. So let's do this one more time. And I tried. What I just showed you before this was quantization while recording. Let me show you quantization after recording. Okay, so my hi-hat is going to need some help. I want to quantize these MIDI notes. Quantization is the process of nudging these MIDI notes to or towards the MIDI grid. Shift Command U on a Mac or quantize settings will give us this screen. Now let's see these few parameters here. Quantize to. Like I said, quantization pushes the notes to or towards the grid. So this is the grid that Ableton Live will take into account. So 16th notes is exactly what I want, because this hi-hat plays 16 times in one bar. So should it adjust start or the end of the MIDI note? Will start, because then it'll move it where I want it to go. And let's see how amount operates. If I set it to 100 and click OK, see what happens. Perfect. It'll snap directly to the grid line. Let me undo this. Let me go back to quantize settings by hitting Shift Command U. What I do often, especially with slower tempos that can benefit from some looseness, I often set this amount to something fairly small, and then I quantize this many times. So Command U is quantizing. So let me just hit Command U a few times. I could actually let it play and listen to it maybe with the metronome on, and let me quantize it a few times. You know, this could work depending on the beat I want to do, because I always say electronic music doesn't have to be perfect. Sometimes electronic music is too perfect, like technically perfect. So some looseness can be pretty good. I could now record the kicks in. Let's do that. I will enable clip recording here, and I will play the clip, and I have no record quantization on. So let's rock. Snares. I'm gonna need snares. My second snare especially is a little late, and the first one happens a little early. So I can quantize them. You don't always have to quantize everything. If I click on this note, it'll select the snares, or I could select them manually. And now let me do the quantization again. I'll hit Command U a few times to quantize just the snare. Yes. All right. Seems good. Well, it sounds pretty good to me. Okay, let's see about some MIDI note editing basics. Let's see about these hi-hats here. If for any reason I wanted to fill the gaps here, there's a nice feature called legato. If I click on legato, the gaps will just disappear. So this will stretch the MIDI notes so that one MIDI note will last till the next one. You can, of course, you can stretch the MIDI notes like this if you want to. And this has to do with the grid as well. So if I disable the grid, it'll be smooth. And if I have the grid on, let's say I have a really big grid, it'll go in steps like this. If I create a new MIDI note, and so let's say I want to make these hi-hats faster, like double speed. There's a nice feature here, this button right here, that will basically take the MIDI notes and squeeze them into a smaller space. You see that I can select certain MIDI notes when I click on the key here. You see that this gets selected and you get this handle here. I could grab this handle here and force these into a certain space if I want to do that. Let me just keep these like this, and Command D will duplicate the selected MIDI notes. You can move the selected notes with arrow keys on your computer keyboard. And velocity is seen here at the bottom. Velocity basically means how loud the note is playing. In most instruments, velocity controls the playback level of the sound. Let me click on the hi-hat notes here, and you see now bottom here, if I click on this node and drag it down, all the selected MIDI notes will get quieter. A nice little tip is selecting some notes like the hi-hats. And on the velocity field here, I hit Command, click, and do a line like this. Hey, see that? Let me just make the hi-hat slower. I think it's going too fast, so I'll just select the notes, double, nice and slow. Let me go to this clip. This was for my bass instrument on this track, so I'll solo the bass instrument track. One nice feature is invert. So I select these notes and click invert, and ta-da! So it'll flip it upside down. For some melodic variation, this is nice. And reverse just flips it, creates like a mirror image. Yo. So far, I've been using Midi instruments only. So instruments are usually some devices that produce sound, and you can play them using your keyboard and create melodies and beats. I said earlier that we also have audio tracks, and in this demo song we have one track that's audio. This track here, 12 wavetable. Double click on the clip so you can see audio here. So audio means that it's something that has already been created and it exists as a file that you can listen to. Let me solo the track and play the clip. So this has been created before. It may have been recorded from an instrument, even from an external instrument, or maybe it's been created by a MIDI instrument, like all the instruments that we've seen on the tracks here. Maybe it's recorded from those, or you could even record your own voice, or you could be recording sounds from your vinyl or your CDs, and that will always create an audio file that will live on your hard drive or your memory stick or such. So let's check out some audio clips basics and how to work with audio. You can bring any audio to the project, even from your Finder or Explorer, but let me do a search for a drum loop. Let me search for Amen, a classic break, and this search will cover all my user library content, and I know that this would be what I want. By the way, you can preview sounds on your browser when your song is playing. I created a new audio track for this. So let me move the track here, and I will bring the Amen break wherever. I can put it here. I can give this a new color. I'll color the track, and I'll use a function called assign track color to clips, and my Amen will get the white color. Let me play this with my song, and I'm gonna say I will probably have a problem and this doesn't sound right, but let me fix it. Let's listen. Let me actually solo the track first, and let me listen to the break. Okay, I want to use that in my song. It's going to sound a little messy. Let me fix that, because in Ableton Live this is very, very handy. Let me solo the track real quick, and let me play it with the metronome, and let me just listen. Yep, no, because my tempo for the song is this. And the Amen isn't exactly matching. So I will use the amazing warp feature of Ableton Live. So now I am in the audio clip view, means I've double clicked on the clip, which is here, and let me enable warping. Boom. Pay attention to what happens at the top of audio. You will get this window that says 1, 1.2, 1.3, and so on. And earlier I talked about bars and beats. So what I'm getting here is like a rhythmical backbone that will allow me to drag and place the hits of audio in relevant places. So this is 1 bar is here and 2 bars here. So Live analyzed the clip and it thinks that this is 2 bars long. But I know that Amen is actually 4 bars long, and I could correct that. For example, I clicked on this symbol here, which doubles the audio length. And let me also, okay, I'll zoom out and I see that this actually looks better now, because now I have this 4 bar brace here. And let me just really quickly listen to this. So let's do something nice with the warping and make this work. So it's up to me to place the relevant parts of the audio in right places on the rhythmical backbone. It's good if you know how long your audio is. Like I know I've counted this drum loop length, it's 4 bars, and I see that this loop race is 4 bars. So I know what space I should be fitting this audio into. So let's look and zoom and listen a little bit. I can see and hear that this snare drum here, it's 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. This is a little loose. So I could drag, click here. You see this little box? I put my cursor here. I click on it and I place it here. So it's in a relevant place now. Let me play this a little further. It starts off pretty nice, but then it kind of just slips off. I'll zoom in and I'll double click on this here. It gets a yellow marker. See what happens to this, for example, this snare if I move something else here. It moves. And I want to lock this into place. So 2 things I can do. Double click on this to create a yellow marker and just place it in the right place. I know the snare drum has to be on 2. And I know this should be on 4. I can also click on the right place, and now I'm holding shift and I'm clicking and I'm holding the click, and now I'm dragging to the right. So I can see and hear that this snare drum is a little loose. So double click and shift, click, drag. Let me undo. Or double click on this gray little transient marker and then just move it to the right place. Looking pretty good. Okay, I don't always want to repeat the clip from the beginning, so let me click here and drag. Let me place it here first. This is the loop brace. This means when if your loop is activated, this brace will tell live what part of the clip to loop. For example, even if I wanted to, I could loop whatever, like this. But now for this warping purposes, I will loop this last part because I don't need to hear the first part all the time. And this arrow here is the clip start position. So I will start listening from here. I zoom in and I'll see that this kick is a little outside of bar 3. It doesn't sound right. So once again, double click, move, boom, there it is. And let me loop it and listen. Okay, let me set the loop brace right. It will stop here. I have a little excess audio here, like the drum loop goes on here. This is the bar 5 start point. I will just drag it out. I think it's going to be pretty okay right now. And one nice tip is if you hold Command or Control on PC, and you see, I'm not even clicking on my trackpad or mouse yet. I'm just holding my cursor here and I hit Command, and I get these 2 markers next to this middle marker. So if I click and drag, the parts close to this one will get locked as well. Let's listen. And let me also speed up the tempo of my project here. And you will see and hear that it works pretty nice. Now it's been synced to the project tempo, so that is what warping is for. A quick later edit pro tip. Once you've warped your audio so that it works well and works nice with the project tempo, you can set the speed of the content in a way. Here you can double and have the tempo. So regular for me is this, but let me have this. Let me double the original. So you get the point. Basically, it takes the content and either doubles the length or halves it while keeping the warping intact. So you can get sort of crazy with this. It'll time stretch the content. A nice feature about audio is even if you pitch it down or up using transpose, it will still be in sync. By the way, double clicking on a parameter will restore it to its default value. Double click, boom, it's at 0. You can detune the sound here by sense, and this is the gain for audio if you need to make it louder or more quiet. I encourage you to read the manual regarding this, which is the warping algorithm. Let me remind you of help window or info window, sorry. So shift ? And when I put my cursor here on bottom left, I get info about warp modes. And this will tell you specifics about what warp mode might be best suited for what purpose. So do experiment with these and read a little bit about these and listen to how they affect the sound, because it's good to be aware of these, because the more you stretch your audio, the more this actually matters. So do try these out. For example, sometimes if I'm time stretching beats, I may use the repitch mode. For example, what do I mean by this? Let me play this and change this to repitch. So it works like vinyl. And Complex Pro is pretty good all-around algorithm that pretty nicely maintains the quality of the audio. If you're working with beats only, beats is nice because it's good for beats because it does not process the initial snap, the transient. It leaves this transient unprocessed, but it processes all the parts between transients, so you will retain the punch. Also, a good thing about warping is it will never mess with your original audio, meaning this is totally non-destructive. What this means is your original audio will always be intact. Ableton Live will never do anything to your original audio. You can always access the original audio from Show in Finder, and I can listen to the audio. And hey, it's intact, even though I stretched this here. So non-destructive warping, great. And also it's good to understand that each clip is independent and they're not really related to one another. Let me duplicate this clip and give this a different color if I want to. And let me pitch this up. And then I could copy and paste, Command C, Command V. Let me do another one, and let me just, this could be transposed down. And let me reverse this clip here. Click on reverse. Okay, so now I have 3 clips, and by the way, I had global quantization off. Let me go for 1 bar. 1, 2, 3, 4. So they're all independent, like they're not linked to each other at all. Each clip is very independent from each other. One word about saving this warping information for further use in such way that if you use this file in a new project, the warping information can be saved and remembered by Live. Here I see this save button. This button right here in the audio clip view is for saving the warping information. The software has analyzed this audio because you have this information, you have the transient markers and all this. So if you save this info just by hitting the save button, it means that if let's say I create a new project and I will use this same audio file in the project, it will remember this warping. You can, of course, change it if you want to later on, like just load the file and warp it again. But if you want Live to remember this info, saving the info is the way to go. And where is this info? Let me show you how you can locate it. I'll click Show in Finder and I will see here the file that I'm using. This is the exact file that I'm using in the project. And this ASD file is the one analysis file that has this information on it. Let's say that I load a new song and bring this Amen onto the track. It will now, as you can see, remember the warping information. So it's there. You don't have to do it again, but you can if you want to. How do I get rid of this information? Let's say that I always want to start from scratch with this file in the future. Well, that is easy. Simply delete the ASD file. And that means when I now start a new song and I load this file into the song, the warping is not remembered by Live. Let me prove that. I'll create a new song and I'll get the Amen on the audio track. And there it is. Warping isn't exactly what I did. Let me play it with metronome so you can hear. Yep, it's a little loose, so it's gone. Let's see about recording some audio. So let me once again create a new audio track. And let me call this recording. And first, to record audio, I have to go to settings or preferences, command, comma, which is Live preferences. So, audio tab, audio input device. This is what you have to set to the device that brings audio into your computer. It could be, for example, your built-in microphone on your laptop. But for example, the microphone that I'm using on my desk is this H5 mic. So this is what I will select for audio input device. So now Ableton Live knows that the audio that is to be recorded is coming in through this device. If you're not seeing your inputs on the track like I am not, Alt Command I for inputs, and now you're seeing some level here. Let me solo the track just in case. And let's talk about these settings here. Now, audio from external input is the first selection here. And what it means is, technically, this tells Ableton Live that the audio will be coming from an external source as opposed to something inside Ableton Live, because I could record sounds from other tracks. External input refers to what you set as the input device on audio settings. So for me, it will be my mic. Here I could choose what track I would be recording from. Let's say if you have a audio interface with several inputs, here you would choose what input you would be using. Well, my mic is a stereo mic, so it has a stereo input, and you could record from left or right, but stereo would be good. And if you need to enable some more inputs to your sound card, if you're not seeing them here, you just click configure and you go to input config, and here you could disable or enable some of the inputs. You can also name them. I could call this my mic stereo, and this will show up in the drop down menu here. So here, my mic stereo. Another thing, on instrument tracks, or with MIDI tracks to be precise. This is what arms the track for playing MIDI. On audio tracks, this will arm the track for recording audio. Before that, it's good to be aware of this monitor settings. Off means that this track will never play back the sound that is coming into the track, which could be useful if you're recording your mic and hearing the playback from your speakers. That could create a feedback loop. Auto means that whenever arming for the audio track is enabled, it will be playing the sound back. If I go for in, it will always be playing back the sound that comes in through the mic or whatever your input source is. I won't need to hear the sound, so I'll go for off and I'll click arm here. It means that now this track is ready for recording. And when I click on any of these round symbols on these empty clip slots, recording will begin. If I want the count in, it's set to 1 bar. It means that when I enable recording, it will give me 1 bar, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we go. So let me just try. I will record some hand clapping. And let me go use the metronome too. So here we go. So let me double click on the clip. And that's my hand clapping. I can listen to it now. Let's repeat some of the warping basics because I want these hits to be exact. Like my first hand clap isn't exactly in the beginning. I have a warp marker here, so I could, for example, there's 2 ways. If I hold shift and click and drag, I can do this fine tuning. But if I don't want to do that, let me undo. I could click on the first transient here, right click or just get the menu and get set 1.1.1 here, which will automatically tell the clip that, hey, this is where it starts. And this, let me fix the loop brace as well. So now it starts in the right place. It is pretty good. Let me fix the last one. Fix as you wish. I'll make sure that loop length is exactly 2, because this is 2 bars long. So now I'll get a perfect 2-bar loop. You can also record internally. You can record any track or even the master track. The procedure for that is very similar to what I just did with the mic. You just select another source. Let's say that I want to record this hand clapping, even maybe with some reverb. I'll add a reverb first. Could be anything. Okay, that'll do. So I'll create a new track, audio track, and audio from this time will be this track here. So I could have named it claps. So audio from will be claps. I just gotta locate it. There it is. So now I'll just enable recording and off we go. It will record from claps track, as you can see. So here we go. So let's see. Here it is. You can also record the master. So audio from would be resampling, which means that it will now sample your whole song. So let's record this loop. And here I have so recording from a mic and recording internally. Just select the write, source, and off you go. By the way, if you ever have to locate a file, whether it be something that you recorded or just an audio file that you've loaded into the project from somewhere else, there's two quick ways. Show in Finder will bring you to the file wherever it is on your hard drive, and you can just look up information on where it is located. Another method is to open the browser, and below Places there's Current Project, and this will always show you the files that your current song is using. For example, let me open samples, and here I have processed reverse, which that's the reversed amen that I did here because I wanted to reverse an audio clip, and I told you that Ableton Live does not do any destructive processing to the original audio file. So when I reversed the audio clip, it created a new one and reversed that. So that's in a relevant folder here and recorded. That's the clapping that I recorded. So this is a very handy feature. And while we are at it, let me explain saving the project relating to its folder and what files you're going to save. There's a very handy feature called Collect All and Save. Let me click on it and let's see. Now you're presented with this dialog, and there's a few considerations here. These are the files that Ableton Live can save inside your project folder. So far I only have the amen and my clapping, but some of the instruments are playing audio files, and those audio files are not yet in my project folder. But if I want to do it, if I want to save them into the song folder, I can do that. So this is for that. Let's see what these are about. Now, files from elsewhere, it means anywhere from outside the project folder. Files from other projects, well, if you have projects in other locations on your hard drive, for example, and this song would be using files from those projects, it would bring those files into this project folder. But if you're never going to delete any of those other projects, you may not want to duplicate those into this folder. Files from user library. Your user library is located in music folder on your hard drive. And if I'm bringing files to this song from the user library, those would be the ones that would get saved into this folder if I selected this. And files from factory packs. Now, factory packs are the expansion packs for Ableton Live that often contain instruments and sounds. And if I wanted to copy those files into this song folder, I could. Let me go look at the folder before I save. So I can look at my computer desktop with the browser because I've added it to my live browser. If you want to do that, you just click Add Folder and then Add Desktop and hit Open, and it will be added to your live browser. So I'm looking at the content. Obviously, I could also view it with my Finder. Here it is. So let me do the collect all and save operation, and let me just select all of these. Why would I do this? This is what I call future proofing, meaning that if I, for example, let's say I have some nice samples in my downloads folder and I bring them into this song. Well, at some point I might do some spring cleaning on my computer and delete some files that I think that are old and unnecessary. Well, I might delete those files in the downloads folder that this song is using. So this way I will make sure that all the audio files that this song uses will be collected into the song folder. I'm seeing the contents of the song, and let me hit yes and OK. Now, what Ableton Live does now is collects all the files inside the song folder, and now I have some new folders that I didn't see before. It's under samples, and the folder structure of some of these folders reflect the structure of the folders wherever on my hard drive that those samples were brought in from. So now everything, all the audio files that this song uses are here. Most of them are under imported. Also, if you send this song to your friend for collaborating or remixing, this is a very good feature for that. What's also very handy about using the browser to check out your song is you can listen to the clips of any of your Ableton Live songs and preview their session clips. Like for example, you see here I have the Amen clips. I can listen to them here, just preview. By the way, you should always give some relevant names to your clips, because Amen reverse could be that, for example, and now I know it's a reversed clip. Sometimes I go and I have lots of songs in one project folder, so sometimes I just recycle some of the elements. So I just randomly sometimes just open up a song and listen to the clips that I have. Okay, let's check out my masterpiece real quick. Let me mute these tracks first. I think my clap is playing a little too loud, so I can either bring the level down, of the track level, I mean. What about my Amen? You see I muted the track. This is for muting the track. The track will keep playing, but you can just make it silent and then bring it back. Maybe I want some background sounds just as a nice filler. Sometimes I go and use my mic. I like to get some sounds of my own, and you can easily just listen to any sounds you have on your hard drive or memory stick. Yeah. I think that was me. So when you find something that's useful, just create a new audio track and bring some audio in. Rain works every time. A really quick word about looping. As I bring the audio clip here, by default it will not loop and it's not warped. If I want to loop it, I have to enable warping, and looping is here. So I would just loop this rain sound, and this brace at the top, this colored brace, tells Live what part of the clip to loop. So here, I'm fine with this. By the way, if you want to edit the contents of an audio clip, it can be done on the arrangement, but I will be getting to arrangement later. Another thing that is covered later on in this video is how you can play your audio material melodically, meaning that if I wanted to take this sound and play melodies with it, I will cover that later on in the video. I think my song will need some synth action. In my music, I like to use synthesizers and samples at the same time. Let me create a new MIDI track. Let me load the analog synth from instruments. Instruments shows you Ableton Live instruments. And let me load the analog synth on the track. I have armed the track to be played, and here I have enabled my computer keyboard as the playback device for a MIDI instrument, meaning that this track will receive MIDI whenever I play it. If I had an external keyboard, I could use it, but for now, I'll just use my computer keyboard. So this is what the basic synth sounds like. By the way, I will not be teaching synthesis to you in this video because I want to keep this video as snappy and efficient and short as possible. I highly encourage you to learn about synthesis on your own time. I know I want to raise the second oscillator by 7 semitones, and I know I can get a nice pad sound this way. I'm playing a chord, and it could probably work in the song. Let's try. Let me record that. Well, that's a short clip. It'll do. You can see the MIDI notes here. Okay, so as you know, you can replace this instrument by any other instruments and the MIDI notes will stay. for example, you could go and check out the wavetable synth and listen to some of its sounds. For example, if I like this preset for the wavetable synth, I can just load it on the track and my MIDI notes will stay. Let me make the MIDI notes here a little longer. I'll raise the second oscillator by 7 semitones as well. I'm not still fully happy with the sound, so I found something that I do like. This is better. You can just do this sound searching as long as you want. You can always load a new instrument on the track. I feel this works pretty nicely with the vibe that I'm going for. Remember that you can select the MIDI notes and just freely move them around and listen. Let's try this one. Maybe I want to have this as the first 2 bars and I want to have different next 2 bars. I will duplicate this loop. So now I want to make a change at the end of the last bar here. I like it. Now let me really quickly show you a very nice feature of Ableton Live called freezing. With freezing you can turn a MIDI clip into audio. Now why would anyone do that? Well, for example, let's say that you're using some third-party instruments, which I will actually explain later in this video. Some of them can be pretty heavy on your computer processor, on the CPU. So sometimes you want to convert all the MIDI stuff into audio, and because audio does not really put much strain on your computer, because audio gets streamed from your hard drive, but instruments usually take more processing power. So if I wanted to turn this track, my first track, which is this, if I want to turn this into audio, it's really simple. I freeze it. So now, let me look at this. The track is now in a frozen state. And from here, for example, let me create a new audio track. I could copy this content over to an audio track. And let's see. As you remember, this was MIDI. And it still is. It's just in a frozen state. Like, I cannot go and edit it. But let me copy this clip, this frozen clip, to audio track. So now I'm looking at the new clip and this is now audio. Let me turn it down a little. It definitely sounds the same. There's no difference. What was MIDI is now audio. This is definitely a nice way sometimes to give your computer a breather. But one thing to notice about this is, now that it's frozen, I could go one step forward or backward. If I choose flatten, this track that was MIDI and is now frozen, it will be turned to an audio track. Let's see, I'll click flatten, so now this track is audio. Let me undo this to go back to the previous state. Now, if I unfreeze it, it will become the MIDI track that I can edit once again. Now, it is now what it was before the freezing. So just to repeat, freezing is a state where any track basically becomes audio and you can copy it to an audio track. A consideration here is that you may want to save this project with this instrument still in place, because if I, for example, if I flatten it and save the song, I cannot go back to the unfrozen state. So when you do this, keep in mind that you may not be able to go back to it after you flatten it and close the song. So maybe save another project or keep the track in the frozen state, because that alone will free up some CPU load. Let me play this audio clip in a sampler, because so far we've only been using audio in such way that I cannot really play it in a melodic fashion in a very convenient way when I'm using audio like this. So let's take a look at using sampler in live. So I'll create a new MIDI track. This is the one. Let me give it a green color, or I guess that's green. So I'll load sampler from instruments. Okay, I'll bring it to the track. So sampler is now empty, but this clip here is the clip that was the result of freezing a track and copying it over to an audio track. So let's say that I want to play a little very easy melody with this clip. So the easiest way to do it is to play it with sampler or sampler. Ableton Live has two so-called sampler instruments. Sampler traditionally is an instrument that can receive sound and then play it with your keyboard. There are some pretty big differences between sampler and sampler. Sampler is good for playing things in a melodic fashion, like this. Let me solo and arm the track. This is now the track that has the frozen clip in sampler. So now I can I'm using my computer keyboard to do this. So I could mute that. Let me turn it down a little. Okay, let me record that clip. Let me practice first. That'll work. Or alternatively, let me just turn metronome on and use the capture feature once again. So I'll just jam it out, and then when I'm done, I'll hit capture and I'll get the information. Now, I think that's good. By the way, I didn't even need the metronome because I got all my beats and stuff playing. So I'll hit capture here and go. Yeah, let me move this MIDI note a little bit. So sampler is a great tool for playing audio with your keyboard and doing melodies with any sort of audio. Well, you don't have to necessarily do any melodies. So let's see about some other useful basic features of sampler. Some things that we can see here on the front panel. Gain gives you more level, allows you to make the sound louder if you want to, or make it quieter. And here you can set where the sample starts, and here you have another control for sample start. This is something that we can automate. I will be talking about automation later on. Length can be set here. This can also be automated, or you can use this handlebar here. If you want to loop a sound, you enable a loop and see this control here. Length and loop will allow you to loop a sound. Like if I wanted to loop this part of the sound. I also applied some so-called crossfading, which gives you a smoother loop. Okay, the sound can also be warped, which means that, well, we took a look at warping earlier. So this uses the same technology, and here you can see that this sound is recognized as an 8-bar sound. You see the bars 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. So 8 bars. So if I played this in warp mode, it would be warped and synced to the beat. So once again, let me solo the track. Let me use the metronome. I'll use warping mode and I'll just play it with the metronome, and you will hear that this will play in sync even if I pitch it up or down. Okay, let's try. Let me stop the clip. So I'll just play it now with the metronome. And let me also pitch it up, and you will hear that it will still be in sync. Okay, I didn't get it exactly with the metronome, but you will probably get the point. Some other basic features here. Attack, decay, sustain, release. What is this? If you've never heard about an ADSR envelope, this is it. Which usually, for example, in this instrument, it controls the amplitude. So if I'm turning attack up while I'm playing the sound, you can hear what happens. The sound fades in gradually, and here is the visual representation of amplitude envelope. So you can see that the level fades in. The rest of the controls, well, for example, release is, because you can hear I'm tapping the sound, and it stops pretty much immediately. So release means how long the sound will play once I release the key. So let me just play this continuously and crank up the release. So it fades out gradually. And decay and sustain have to do with, you can see here, once the amplitude reaches its maximum level, it doesn't have to stay there necessarily. And this has to do with when you're holding your key down. So now I will be playing this and I'll hold my key down. So even though I hold my key down, the sound kind of fades out, which means that sustain sets the level where the sound will end up when you're holding it. And decay is how long it takes for the level to reach this level, the sustain level, after reaching the peak. For example, if I wanted the sound to fade out completely and make it happen a little slower, decay would be my friend. Panning in stereo field, spreading allows you to spread the sound a little more in stereo field. Transpose is pitching. And glide means that if I quickly play two notes in succession and I hold the keys, you can hear how the sound glides to the next note. I will be talking about LFO a little later. One thing about the classic mode that we have been using so far is it is polyphonic if you want to. Here it shows how many voices it can play at the same time, meaning I could play a chord with this sound. But it would sound a little funny if I did a chord with this sound, because this sound is a chord. I can do it. Whoops. Okay, it sounds a little funny, but if I put some really simple one note into it, I can do a chord. So that's nice. But then let's take a look at one-shot mode. Let me undo that and let's see how one-shot mode works. For example, this could be useful with a kick sound. For example, let me do a search for, I know I have a techno bass drum here. So let me load this here. When I play it, it will play the whole sound. Whereas if I'm in classic mode, and let's say I have no release, you hear that? It's very short. And let's say if I'm doing finger drumming or playing live, I don't want this to happen. And I don't want a chord to happen with a kick either. So I would go for a one-shot mode. It will play the whole sound immediately and I don't have to hold the note down. So it's useful for that. And one word about the different modes in one-shot mode. You have trigger, which I'm using here. Let me actually undo a few steps so I'll get back to my original sound that I had here. Okay. So trigger will play the whole sound from start to end but when you activate gate, it will not do that. But here you see that fade out, it will give it some length. Now let's see slice mode. This is something I like a lot. Let me actually create a new track because I want to keep this sound, and let me I'll do a new track, Shift Command T for a MIDI track, and I'll just load a sampler here once again. Let me, because I have something in mind. This will give me a sound from one of the packs. Let's see if I can work with this. So this is a sample that plays in reverse. If I want to reverse a sample, I'll just give it a right click or control click and get reverse sample. So what I did here is I reversed a sample that was already in reverse. So now it's playing normally. So let's talk about slice mode. I enter slice mode and you will see these blue vertical things here. And let me set my computer keyboard to start to C1, because I know that the lowest note here will be C1, or the first sound. So what happened is Ableton Live automatically divided this sound into a few parts that I can now play chromatically with my keyboard. It starts from C1 and the notes will go from there, go higher. So what happened here is slice mode. First mode here is transient mode, and transient means the little changes in audio. Usually when the level changes quickly, that's usually where a transient marker is placed. So technically Ableton Live chewed on this and decided to put these markers on those spots based on this sensitivity control. And wherever you see this blue vertical line, that means that you have a new sound there and it is on a key on its own. You can add these markers by double clicking if you want to, but sensitivity will bring the sensitivity down, and now it's super non-sensitive and you don't have very many chops. Let's see beat. Now you can divide this into a few parts. Like quarter notes is 1, 2, 3, 4. Like if I had a house loop that's warped tight and it has a definite tempo, it's good for that. Let me actually find a house loop and let's work with that so you know what I mean. So let me do a search while I'm in the pack section. Let me just do a search for house loop. This is perfect. So here I have a definite 1, 2, 3, 4 rhythm, and let me go to slicing by beat, division 1 by 4, so it's 1, 2, 3, 4. So it could work well with a material like this. Region, this means that audio will be chopped in this many regions that are of equal size. So now I have 8 here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And I could move these freely if I wanted to. What I use a lot is manual. So now when I go to manual mode, I have no chops. Double clicking will create a slicing point, as you can see. I'm just doing this by eye now. Let me listen. This will be C1 and Cis. I don't know why, but I like doing the chops myself. So manual slicing is great for that. Let me actually go back to the guitar sound that I had. I'll just undo this real quick. I want to slice it manually, so. By the way, you can make this screen a little bigger if you tap this little up arrow. No, right arrow, sorry. I'll just visually first add these here and then listen if it makes any sense. Okay, let me see if I can make it work in my song in any way. It could work. I could probably transpose it down. I think it plays a little high, So let me see if I can maybe use this. I'll record the clip. Okay, that could work. Remember that you don't actually have to play the clip from the beginning if you don't want to, because when I did that clip, I was thinking like maybe this guitar sound could happen at 3 bars in. Now it starts in the beginning. So I mean, this was the default. So I'm thinking maybe that could happen after 2 bars. So I could either move this clip play marker here, the start marker I mean, and then it would play the sounds after 2 bars. I think the guitar that I have is sounding pretty dry, and I could definitely use some reverb on it. So let's take a really quick look at audio effects. If you want to use the audio effects that come with Ableton Live, this tab here, audio effects, the one that shows you all the effects you get with Ableton Live. So reverb was the sound that I said I could be using because it's really dry. I can drag the reverb onto the track, or let me undo. Double clicking will also load it onto the track, because basically you always have some track selected. So this is selected, this is my guitar track, reverb, and sounds nicer. Let me make the reverb decay time longer. I like big reverbs, I won't lie. I could probably cut out some of the low frequencies. Could work. Let me listen to it. Okay, let me do that. So I can record into the existing clip by selecting this icon here and playing the clip. All right,